is on the other side of the brake chamber. It's properly attached to the push rod with all the pins and cotter pins are in place. Neither one of them are bent or cracked. With the brakes released and the wheels chalked, the slack adjuster will not move more than 1 inch. They do not want you underneath the truck. Okay, so you try to point in the best direction you can. From right here, I'm going to point to my brakes. And my brakes, the linings are not worn dangerously thin, they're not cracked or broken. There's no oil or grease to indicate an inner seal leak. And then the brake drum is not cracked or broken, and there are no unauthorized welds. The inside and outside of my tires, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. They're evenly worn. There's no tread separation. The tire thumper or pressure gauge, I check for proper inflation. My rim, not cracked, bent, or broken, and there's no unauthorized welds, both the inner and the outer. Also going to make sure there's no debris shoved in between the tires and they're not touching each other. And I'm going to check my valve stems outside, okay, and then the inside. Make sure they're both straight, not cracked or broken. They both have a metal cap and they're not leaking. All my lug studs are in place, none are cracked or broken, none are missing. No running rust or shiny threads to indicate a loose lug. My axle seal, there's no cracked, broken, or missing bolts. And it's not leaking. Then my splash guard, my mud flap, not ripped or torn. There are no missing bolts. It's not hanging dangerously low. The locking jaws around the shank of my kingpin. The kingpin itself is not cracked or broken. It's also properly greased. My tail lights and my reflectors are red in color. They're clean, not cracked or broken, and they're working properly. A little dirty. And all my cross members on my trailer, they're all in place. None of them are broken, cracked. There are no holes in my trailer, the floorboard. My landing gear, properly welded to the frame of my trailer, okay, and also bolted. There are no missing bolts. All the support brackets are not cracked or broken. Landing pads are all the way up. Crank handles in a locked position. I'm going to look down the side of my trailer. Make sure it's not bulged out to indicate a shifted load all the way down. The DOT reflective tape is clean, not ripped or torn. Clearance lights at the top are amber in the front, middle, and red in the rear. And the marker lights at the bottom. Same thing. Amber in the front, middle, red in the rear. They're all clean, not cracked or broken, and working properly. You don't do the battery box. This is a turn signal. I'm going to make sure the turn signal itself is clean. It's amber and it's not cracked or broken. Come back and check the lights in a little bit. Check my sliding tandem frame. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. The tandem pins, the locking pins, are through the holes in the frame. The release handle's in a locked position. All the hoses are not dry rotted, cut, or split. They're off the ground, they're not hanging dangerously low, and there's no leaks. My spring hangers, spring mounts, no cracked, broken, or missing welds. They're not cracked or bent. My torque rod, no missing bolts, it's not cracked, bent, or broken. And the bushing's in place. Then the springs, they're straight, they're not cracked, broken, or missing any leaves. My U-bolts are in place. They're not cracked or broken. If they're loose, there'd be shiny spots on my springs. My air hoses going down to my brake chambers. They're not dry rotted, cut, or split. They're not leaking. Properly attached on each end. Brake chamber itself is not cracked, bent, or broken. Clamps are in place. They're not leaking. And again, your slack adjusters and your push rods are on the other side of your brake chamber. The push rods are properly attached to the slack adjuster. All pins and cotter pins are in place. slack adjuster itself will not move more than 1 inch when the brake's released and the wheels chuck. Brake linings, they're not worn dangerously thin, they're not cracked or broken. There's no oil or grease to indicate an inner seal leak. The brake drum is not cracked or broken. There are no unauthorized welds. Inside and outside of both my tires, no abrasion, bulges, or cuts. They're evenly worn, no tread separation. Tire thumper and pressure gauge, I check for proper inflation. I'm also going to check in between the tires, make sure there's no debris. The tires are not touching each other. Check the inside and outside valve stem, make sure they're not cracked or broken. They're straight, they're not leaking, and they have a metal cap. The rims themselves are not cracked, bent, or broken, no unauthorized welds. All the lug nuts are present, none are cracked or broken, none missing, no running rust or shiny threads to indicate a loose lug. All the hub seal bolts are in place, none are cracked or broken, it's not leaking. We'll check the center mount, spring mount, make sure there's no missing welds, not cracked, bent, or broken. We'll check this axle the same as I did this axle. And this is your ABS light. Make sure it's amber in color, it's clean, it's not cracked or broken. Your mud flap, make sure it's not ripped or torn, it's not hanging dangerously low. And all the bolts are present, none are cracked or broken. License plate, proper registration, is clean, not cracked or broken or missing any bolts. Tail lights. And the clearance lights at the top are red in color, they're clean, not cracked or broken, and they are working properly. You got to check the door cable, tension cables. Make sure you have proper tension on the cables, make sure they're not missing or broken. Make sure the latch is working properly, make sure it opens and closes, please do not open and close it. And then the door rolls up and down freely, it's not bulged out to indicate a shifted load. All the DOT tape is not ripped or torn, it's clean. Okay. Now, I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side of the truck as I did that side. Basically, that completes your pre-trip other than checking your lights.